So people often ask whether there's a creator or not. And to look for creator, yes? Now, it almost seems hidden, yes? So if we start to look at the pattern, you'll ask these questions. God's honest truth, right? I don't know, yeah? But there's enough to point evidence in a direction that says there's more going on, right? So let's have a look at this. So first of all, the universe, number one prize of all prizes. Do you know what it is?
What?
It's not being good.
Eternal living.
That's eternal living, possibly, could be granted. No. Its number one prize is intelligence. Number one, right? When you look out at the universe, you've got to understand that there's a lot of intelligence going on, yes? It's very intelligent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so let's give an example of intelligence, right? So if we pit a star being hot, sending out energy towards the planets, yes?
Yeah.
Planets want to become stars. 101. Yet, stars know that planets will build up mass. Mass being like Jupiter is full of gas and everything else, right? So the star can eliminate the gas from the planet. So the planets learn that blocking heat, which is interesting, or generating more heat internally but blocking it externally. So here, we had an ice age here, yes? So where the atmosphere collapsed down. The isotopes of water at the depths, the deepest parts, they increased. The atmosphere that we all breathe in, and let's say it's 40 kilometers above, dropped down to around 20. That excess, let's say, atmosphere collapses down to create a lot of moisture, and this creates frozen. It's far more easier to freeze this non-salted version than it is to freeze salt water. It's not impossible. Yes?
Yeah.
So when your atmosphere collapses down, Earth protects itself from radiation from a star, which the heat from that can accelerate and puff it up. It's a very interesting thing, right? So you understand that it's intelligence. Whatever it is that's out there is very intelligent.
Yeah.
Yes? Built, based.
Yeah.
And it's put this blueprint into everything. The defiance, yes?
Yeah.
So we can look at that. We're going to look at something else. We can say that it's shy. Doesn't want to be seen clearly. Or you could say that either it doesn't want to be seen directly, or it doesn't know how to see itself.
But how?
Well, people will say in the Bible is written, or wrote, that God created humans in his image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you've also got stars, animals,
Plants,
planets,
ores, stuff like that, resources, nature, and so on and so on.
So there's a lot of sap there.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So again, does it know how to see itself? Or does it see itself as multiple versions? And when we start to factor in intelligence,
Yeah.
yes?
Mm-hmm.
Now we've got this new one here that we can add into it. So we can say shy, but also intelligent. So does it know that it's more than one thing?
I think that it should be.
And therefore, how intelligent is it in these different aspects if it breaks itself down?
Probably more intelligent than humans, to be honest.
Yeah. Another thing that it loves learning.
Oh.
And not only does it love learning, it loves storing knowledge, the learned knowledge. So as we begin to factor all of these things in, just when you look out into the universe, its array of different aspects, different colors, it's multicultural.
Yeah.
Like we can say that there's a lot of life forms on the planet. But what's not to say, or there is to say, that there is more life out there.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, there is.
And there again, if God, being, creator, you can label this as whatever you want, universal power, it thrives on these things. So shy, we could say, it doesn't want to be seen. It also understands this thing called timing.
Oh, so like when people are ready.
Well, when it's ready,
Yeah.
timing. The timing you were born, the timing that you lived, the timing that you will die. That's all timing. When you exist, how you exist. It's no good rising up life forms on a planet that can't live for very long. That's, again, factors back into intelligence,
Yeah.
and therefore learning, knowledge, and holding this stuff as memory. And it loves memory because it puts memory into a lot of things. Humans, animals, nature, planets, stars. There is held knowledge, the universe itself, right? It knows how to transition from cycles. Again, factors back into timing,
Yep.
and then it understands learning, then it holds this knowledge, and it's looking at itself in intel. Could you say that it's shy? Yes. Or you could say, a better word, is that it knows its image, but it's more than one thing. Yes? So
Yeah.
it sees itself in many different angles. So let's take a human that you could look at yourself in the mirror under light that is the star that we understand it, and you see yourself. Now what happens if you put a UV light on and shut down the rest of the lights?
What will happen?
Well, you change your image, right?
Well, yeah.
Your skin often looks a little bit more darker. Yes, under UV light, yeah? You notice that you've got more of a tan to your skin.
Yep.
If we go to ultraviolet, is what it's called, I think, yeah, UV, ultraviolet, yeah? And you also cannot see your veins.
Weird.
So,
Why?
again, that's one way of seeing yourself, yes?
Yeah.
What happens if you turn the light out? Allow your eyes to adjust to the darkness, let's say, and then you look into the mirror and see yourself.
You look well.
Okay, what about when you see yourself when the lights are dim? There's a phenomena attached to that. People often say that they look spookier when they're in the grey zone, where it's not too light and it's not too dark, and you look in a mirror and people look
Different?
a little bit
Spooky. Like Halloweeny.
Yeah, like very strict. Again, but that's another way to see yourself, yes?
Yeah.
What about if you could be multi-talented?
Good, yeah.
Yeah, so if you could learn how to play the piano.
Or the guitar.
But then also know how to work on demolition. Yeah, and then you know how to be a mom or a dad or a parent.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Then what happens if you know also how to be a mechanic?
Oh, yeah.
And an electrician?
Yep.
Which version is you?
Well, they're all you.
Well, they're all you.
Yeah.
But again, looking at yourself in multiple different aspects, which then factors back into intelligence, then into shy or multi?
I think it's shy and multi. It could be both.
Yeah. Also hidden.
Yeah.
Hidden. It hides.
So I've got a question. So about this like it's different thing. So okay, so basically this is my way of kind of understanding it. Take like a fabric or pizza. Let's say that you want something different with your pizza. Let's say like one slice is anything. So it's kind of like that because it's got a different taste, different personality.
So different topping each time.
Yeah.
Pretty much it. But the baseline of it is still intelligent, but in multiple different aspects.
Yeah.
It's still a pizza.
Yeah.
It's just changed the toppings. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I like that.
Or a fabric.
Yeah?
Like this fabric. Because it's different.
And there is something else as well, that it's recyclable. It loves to be able to recycle. So, there's a lot of things here that point to a higher intelligence, yes?
Yeah.
A higher semantic. Something there, although it's hidden. But it loves timing. So hidden means that it can be revealed at the right time.
Yep.
What's the right time? Well, do you fit into these categories? That's another question, and if you do, then the right time, the hidden turns into visible, because we have hidden and we have visible. So, I don't know if I want to put that as vision.
Yeah, vision.
And hidden, because let's do something here, for example, again, so if we're analyzing the patterns of the universe, it's also hidden and vision. So you can look through the room and look at all the objects in the room.
Yeah.
Your brain and eyes have told you, not told you in so many words, but there are tiny little objects that are everywhere. You're breathing in a gas.
Oh.
And you can't see that gas. If you could see that gas, you wouldn't be able to see
anything that's around you.
Unless you got really close to it, right? But then that would defeat the object of having eyes. Also ears, but let's just stick with eyes. So it hides something in order to make something else visible.
True.
Based on timing. And what is that? Again, based on intelligence. In order for you to see. Then if we look out into space at night, that ink blackness of the sky with the points of light, that is not empty. Once again, the brain and the eyes have been told, don't see that.
Yes, but Dad.
Then that allows you to see the stars further away.
But then why is it called space if it's not empty?
Because space was created, the knowledge of that was learned then, and then this knowledge expands. It never stays stagnant. It evolves, which again, evolution. Evolving is another thing that the universe likes as well. It likes to evolve. So why is it called space? Because in the beginning they thought that it was empty until time goes on, and then they're like, hold on a minute, there's something here.
There's like these weird shiny things.
So like magnetism. When you take a magnet and put it on your arm and put it over the other side of your arm, it moves the magnet.
It does.
But you can't feel that.
No.
You can't feel magnetism. If I put a magnet near you, you can't feel it.
Nope.
Doesn't mean that it's not there. But you notice its effects. You can't see magnets. You can only see how it responds to metal. And it sticks to things and certain things. So therefore, it tells you that there's more going on to that.
Yeah.
And then you research it. And then you find out that it's not a mythical force. No, it's because of the properties of magnetism and metal and the way that they respond to each other. Although you can't see it, you can see its effects. So when looking out into space, what appeared to be empty, then it started to distort things and then began to allow people to see. And at the right time, the hidden becomes seeable. So again, the universe operates on this pattern. So if you wanted a clue of a personality of who or what created the universe, this is giving you levels of understanding. And it clearly loves to see itself in these intelligences.
Oh yeah, so it gives a piece of itself to every creation that it does.
Yes, and allows it to, what do you think? Yeah? It allows it to go, what do you feel? What will you do with that? This is what I did. What can you do with it? So you see, if we were to take things from rubbish and start creating, it's very creativity, right? So again, we could say creativity falls into there. It loves creation. It loves creativity. So it loves creating.
Yep, it does.
Also loves these cycles, and it loves creating. Creativity seems to be quite a... And once again, we start to build a picture of something more than what we are. Why? Because this is a pattern that is leading somewhere. And then you begin to piece together the clues. So, and it loves detective. It loves for you to be able to piece together the clues because you are then proving intelligence.
Oh.
You are also learning it. You are garnering knowledge about it. It's evolving you whilst you're evolving yourself. All of these pieces that reveal give you timing. What was hidden becomes seen. And in the process, you are creating an existence that is probably on more form.
Okay, so basically, let's just take like everything that you need to make a cake or bread or something like that. and you mix it all together and you bake it. Well, before you bake it, it doesn't look like much, does it?
No.
But when you bake it and it expands and then it's ready to eat once you decorate it and everything, it looks nice. So it's like that kind of, right?
Yes, but you can't throw all the ingredients together. You have to have timing.
Yeah.
Which I guess is a lot of patience as well. So
Yeah.
patience could be another one that's we could put in there. So let's just put Pat. I'll question mark that one. Because patience and timing, aren't these both the exact same thing?
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
If you've got timing, isn't you are really saying that you are patient to wait for that time. But yes, exactly. And you can't rush that process either, can you? I mean, you could eat the flour and shove all these ingredients in your mouth, but get to the yeast part, oh my days, I can barely smell it. Imagine putting that... Right? Do you get what I mean? So putting all those ingredients in your mouth, it doesn't taste anything like bread. But you've got to have the timing, and you've got to have, the patience, which means the timing, and you can't rush the process. And then what's hidden is the bread in that mixture. Then, when it begins to rise and you add the ingredient called heat, that's what gives you the vision and also the taste. It loves taste then, clearly, because most things taste, except for dogs. Dogs don't really care what they eat.
No, they don't.
But there again, some of them were really fussy about certain food. They just wouldn't eat it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's 100% true. Or maybe it was a fluke. Putting down certain dog food, they wouldn't eat certain canned dog food. We couldn't get it because they wouldn't eat it. So that must have been something.
Yep.
Like, well, I don't know. That must have been really bad tasting. Tastes like corned beef. No, I never tried it, but still. So you then understand with all of these things that come together,
yeah,
it gives you a general shape or something. And therefore, you can then understand that something is guiding you in this way. Something is leading you. Something is guiding all of us, but it's hidden until it's right to be seen.
Oh yeah, like a cookbook. That's guiding you.
Pretty much. And all of these things that when they all come together,
yep,
I mean, it makes such a beautiful outcome. So intelligence, but atmospheres is a fascinating thing. That when they collapse down, the more further out into space you go, you can reach more ice giants. Well, this is so that they hold on to their atmosphere. You also notice this with Pluto. It puffs up when it gets close to the star, and then it shrinks down and the atmosphere collapses. Puffs up, collapses down. Heat seems to be a factor in this. However, it's holding on to it because it doesn't want to lose it. But even still, that's an interesting process. And here on the Earth, we had an ice age.
Yeah, we did.
So that means the atmosphere would have been less dense, less thick. So space would have been more easier to achieve, which is very interesting. And plus, there's two ways this happens, right? So you've got you've got the crust, normal, yes? Mm-hmm. This would be the landmass that you can walk on here and here. I don't know if I can see it yet. And then in an ice age, the ice layer will build up.
Which means?
Well, there's two things that are happening. Your atmosphere that perhaps was once this big, has now shrunk down this much. And not only has that happened, but you've now garnered an extra layer. So anything that was there were in a less pressurized environment.
Which means that it would have died?
No, I believe that the less pressure there is, the larger the life forms will grow.
Oh.
So things get perhaps bigger, and then as the atmosphere begins to, the ice melts, that's got to go somewhere. It can't all be liquid, but it would expand as atmosphere. Atmosphere is continuously changing, it's never the same. That's why we have high and low pressure. That's on the small scale, just like we have winter and summer, hot age, ice age, grand scheme of things. And then you also have this atmosphere of high and low pressure, and this is what they read in weather reports, the high and lows, high and lows, high and lows. And then that is more extreme, a bit like so we have summer, and we also have winter, yes?
Yeah.
So these are the extremes of plus and minus, yes?
Yeah.
But we also have high pressure, And we also have low pressure. Yeah?
Yeah.
But we also have an ice age, which is extreme winter.
Yep.
And we also have a hot age.
Which is extreme summer.
Which is extreme summer. Exactly. Now, we also have pressure high and low in these mediums. So we have a high-low ratio in summer, and we also have a high-low ratio in the winter, yes?
Yeah.
This is just warning that there is an extreme version of this. So how much pressure do you think would be in an ice age? I'm going to say low pressure, very low. Very, very low pressure. And I think in a hot age, I think we have more high pressure. Nearly put height then. And what does this outcome have for life? Each of these outcomes must alter life. In one way or another, it's going to change the way life exists, which is interesting. It gets you ready for the grand scheme of things, because closer to the star, it's cooking hot, but on your shadow, it's freezing cold. So you can have minus 350 degrees below zero. That's like quite a few, many times colder than your freezer.
True.
And it's going to be hot, which is many more times hotter than any oven, especially for forging metals or stuff like that, which all that is doing is heating up metals to remove the tiny little hairline fractures out of it. In order to make things strong,
yeah,
you have to remove the tiny fractures, the tiny rivers that are inside metal. Metal that has not been heated is brittle because it's got lots of crevices in it, lots of cracks. When you strike something that is a solid object like this, it creates vibration. And the vibration has to leave somewhere, if not it'll destroy the whole thing. So it finds these fissures and it
lets them go.
Yeah, this is what then causes the metal to fail. But when you heat it up, you remove these fissures and it allows for a more denser object. That's for one. And two, it adds strength to it. So vibration can evenly at the ends. But you need the flexibility. It's an interesting thing. Vibration destroys a lot of things. And the more denser the object, the more the vibration will rip through these objects, which is, yeah, another video, but still. So, if you want to know whether there is something, this is a purpose. So I'm going to go all out and say yes. Now, that's only because this type of behavior is too neat.
Yeah.
It's not scruffy. It's not accidental. It's not all of these things coming together to create. No, this is very deliberate. Intelligence is left in the aftermath. So you can name intelligent people throughout history.
Yeah.
And their intelligence leaves a mark.
Oh, so like this is a mark, like nature and stuff like that.
Everything leaves a mark. Intelligence leaves a signature. So when intelligent people come throughout history, they tend to leave this signature. And they go back for a very long time and people remember these people. Why? Because intelligence leaves fingerprints, residue. And the devices that you use, like mobile phones and stuff like that, came from Nikola Tesla, the Wi-Fi. He said that they were to be given for free. These are free parts in a device. They don't charge you for this stuff. It's interesting, isn't it? So you'll understand that technology, although at the time was not really, they had nothing they could really do with it.
Yeah.
They knew where it could head, but to get there was a hell of a journey to reach it. And then it would then make you understand where Nikola Tesla's mindset was before this moment happened. And he already were making things for that moment, and the world walked the path towards it. Therefore, there is an echo, a residual energy left behind by intelligent people leave a signature through history. Einstein, different things like that. And you can keep going back. Copernicus and intelligence leaves a mark because it is the mark of the universe. So when we look at that, and we could say that humans just want it to be that way. No, you don't build all your societies around walking to that point for no reason. No one ever does that. Do you know how much money has gone into creating that part?
A lot.
A lot from Tesla's vision, Nikola Tesla's vision, all the way up until that moment. There's been many more, and in the British Empire as well, where they make things that are extremely strange at the time, and people will laugh at it and you're out of your mind, and then the whole of humanity walks towards this stuff. Then that leaves that signature. Well, what's left this signature then? Because it is reverberating. So when anything intelligent is about, which you could say creator or the overall structure of the universe, my word, just you take a moment to look out at that and think, shit me, this is intelligence.
Yeah.
I know we often look at intelligence as schooling and stuff like that and education, which it is, but in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah,
I mean, just take a look up at that now and then and think, wow,
What's
that is the university. The university. It's all about learning. The universe? University?
Yeah, I do hear that. I always wondered that. Why do they call it that?
Well, think about it in a logical sense. What is the universe? It's a tool shop.
It is, isn't
Lots
it?
of resources everywhere.
Yeah.
We come from this. Where did we get the information to do it? Hunter-gatherers. They start that off. Their signature is still here.
Yep.
That they collected resources and maneuvered things, which then led on to farming, and farming meaning animals. So, horticulture, agriculture, all of these things is what led to the modern empires being built today, and some of the pyramids which led on to that. If it didn't come from these times, these will never be here. And then, what is the bigger picture of learning from all of that? So we can just say it was the past, they didn't know what they were doing. We're still doing it.
We are.
Well, think about it. We collect resources. Okay, they've changed an awful lot since then.
Yep.
So we're no longer collecting food. We're no longer hunting that. We're expanding the food that we've got, and it allows for loads of people to live. That's, again, intelligence. But our resources have moved. Oil, solar panels, wind turbines, hydrogen fuel, rocket technology, right? It's still the same.
All of that.
Lithium.
Kinda.
So we've moved a lot from that, yes,
Yeah.
and but then if you then begin to apply hunter-gatherer knowledge out into space,
I mean, how far would you get?
well, you have to be multi-adaptable. You can't pick a planet and accept it to be giving you everything that you're going to need. No, it's going to be widespread than that. It's going to be like conquering the oceans like they did Columbus and everybody else, and the ones that set sail to go and find America back in the day. It's an interesting thing, and some French sailors also went there as well, if I remember rightly. And big bearded fellow, nice big hat. Anyway, I don't forget his name, but still. When you're looking at the universe, you noticed back then that the land, when we were certain on different islands,
Yeah.
we had to travel in multiple directions to reach these lands of abundance. And when we went to one particular place, it may have been really crap at resources, but it was really good for another resource, farming. Then we go to another one, ain't no good for farming, but it's really good for getting resources, coal and different things like that. And then you go to another one, and it might not have been good for any of those things, but gee me, the amount of gold, silver, platinum, diamonds and certain things like that. So you understand that if we are to believe that we're going to find this oasis, this land or world that is going to produce all resources that you ever need, that's not the way it works. When you gather enough resources to be able to give it away for free, a bit like farming today, back in the day, that was hard hunting. You didn't hunt, you didn't eat. You didn't eat, you probably died.
Yeah.
Because you got withdrawn on energy, low energy reserves, and just by some miracle you may have, if you didn't cook, if you didn't find the right foods, that's the sort of environment that they come from. Now this becomes so abundant. It's not protected, it needs to go into farms that go into space. Because if we've already had an ice age, you need to protect this shit.
You do, don't you?
Don't leave it on the planet. It's like leaving all of your prized possessions on the windowsill of your front room house, where people are walking by in the middle of a city. protected by a very weak, brittle, fragile layer of glass. You might as well just leave the window open.
Yeah, why not?
I'm trusting you with a sign that says, I'm trusting you not to steal anything.
For free.
Yeah. Leaving all of this stuff out on the planet.
People like it.
So you see, the hunter-gatherers would be going completely, they'd be losing they would be getting anxiety about that. Because we're settling on farming being okay, but they would come from a place of ice, the turn of the ice age, and if you could bring one here, you don't need to bring one here because their signature is still here.
True.
It's all about the timing. Their one message that they would have for humanity now is stop leaving this shit out on the planet. Leave it out on the planet, but also now start putting this stuff into protected environments. Because if this happens, you don't need to worry about building that. It protects your empire, meaning people coming together, yes?
Yeah.
People being protected is what makes up an empire, yes?
Unity.
Unity, yeah.
It's unity.
So people coming together. If there's an ice age, this fractures. Or a hot age, this will fracture that empire because it will collapse because it didn't do anything to protect. Egypt learned this from the famine, the plague, the crops. You know, they put too many eggs in one basket and you're trusting the world to be the same all the time. But intelligence is slipping when you look back at your past and think, and the universe tests, but it also holds open the gate. So you're due an ice age. It hasn't happened. Something is pushing this back. And then we get cocky and we relax into that and think there's never going to be one. And then all of a sudden it hits and it takes everybody by surprise. Intelligence is about getting ahead of that. Did it happen once? It did. What are the benefits of creating these farms? Well, space. What is space? Hot and cold, right? What's it teaching you? There would be created that when it gets hot, there's going to be high pressure. Pressure's going to build up in the module. You need to learn this. And when there is ice or its cold side of it, there's going to be low pressure. That pressure that built up to expand that nearly broke apart your module can be inflated into a balloon, saved for later, and when the low pressure comes, that air from the balloon reinflates back into the module again. You haven't lost any gases, and it's taught you something that you can deal with the hot and the cold. Not too hot, not too cold. And if you put food in that, that food is going to last no matter what happens on the planet. Massive fires, destroy your crop. Famine, destroy your crop. Not just outbreaks in colds and flu that you want to be looking out for, it's those little critters that will eat your crop.
And then if they eat your crops,
you won't get food, and then you can get a bit hungry, and
you can...
This really pushes the empire to its limits, because then people have to then put money out that they didn't necessarily want to put out.
Yeah.
So because food was coming in, the grain, the storage cupboards were full, they never needed to subsidy any money to that. But once it's gone and that's empty, who have you got to buy it from?
Them.
Other nations, other people. And you have to pay for it.
Yeah,
now you have to subsidy. What if they don't have enough?
Yeah.
Our empire is really growing enough food to support the world? Or, you see, this is when it gets very, 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 very bad.
And then that could mean...
So, it just means that we need to learn, and then we start creating... We align our stars. Once it's done like this, it has so many purposes. What's the purpose? It's going to cost money to build it. Don't get me wrong, it's going to cost manpower and everything else. Yes. Creates jobs. Very interesting ones. And if they only go on the surface, man, could you stick these in Antarctica? Just these modules. They just grow food. You just send the food back. Can you stick them on the moon? Yes. Can you put them in low Earth orbit? Perhaps. Could you make them fly around the planet on a helium balloon for months at a time? Yes, you can. And once you do that, you've now got extra food. That if there is a flood, it doesn't matter. It does, but we'll get through it.
Yeah.
We got enough to keep us in rations. Rations will keep you alive, and rations mean that until times improve, you've got enough time to sort it out. Then you don't have to add expense. Why? Because you invested in a system that was built upon logic, intelligence, learning, knowledge, and you made the hidden visible. Although you can't see it, you know that it might not come. But still, even if it doesn't, is it wasted money? No, because what happens if space programs start taking off? What do these become? Space ready.
Yeah.
Already there.
Yep.
Then if you put people in these modules, nature to start with, and when it fails, okay, we'll learn from that. Because we learn from mistakes, learning, and you go again. And once you get it perfected, now it's ready for humans. Humans can then live in that. Now you're not only protecting crops, but you're now protecting people. And when people are protected and crops are protected and food is protected, and now are you able to get to other planets? Again, like the sailors, the Columbus and everybody else. Going to just the places of America, which founded America, and some going to Australia. That's like some going to Venus, some going to Mars, some going to Jupiter. We're going to have to sail the liquids of space. They call it empty. I think it's not. I think it's a liquid, but a reverse liquid. Interesting. And then you have to go to these places. And whereas this place over here might not be no good for water, but this one over here, abundance of it. But too much to do this, but if we combine the two, we got a growth.
Just a question. But I saw a video. Someone put water out in space and it just floated and then dissolved.
Well, that was in a pressurized environment, in a space station. That's pressurized. Now, floated, it goes into a sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah? And it's very sticky. We underestimate how sticky water is until we get to space, and then we know that you can actually drown on a very little amount of water in space. Absolutely, because it sticks to you, and especially the hairs, it grabs it, holds onto it. It's a fascinating thing. Out in space, water won't do that. It separates. Water is made up of hydrogen and oxygen. H2O. Looks like Mickey Mouse. In space, these separate into a gas. It would make, if you had it in a balloon and you had water, it would make atmosphere in the balloon. Now, if the balloon had more gas put into it, it would then create water, which would then start flowing and doing all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff depending on how the balloon was moving. This would influence, because the atmosphere, although it's small in nature, when we look at the planet, it should be rippling from space. Our atmosphere is rippling. It's not a perfect circle, it's a ripple. And some of it smears up, falls down. It's very strange because it's the magnetic field, a bit like the star. Although we can see it on the star because it's easier to see so. But here, some of the gases are trapped in the magnetic belts and cross over with one another. It's just the way it is. So it causes this rippling effect. This rippling effect really does drive ocean water. Not 100%, but it's a factor. It's a variable that goes into it. Also the moon, not just the moon's gravitational influence, but also the moon's gravitational influence on the planet. It causes the planet to rise up. All of these things factor one another, and then the ocean moving affects the atmosphere again. This then pushes back down. We know what happens when there's a hole in the atmosphere. The hole in the atmosphere will create a weather system. It's also known as a depression. This creates very strong winds, and in the process, it knocks up a lot of big waves. So it crunches on the shoreline depending on where it is. And when there's a hole in the atmosphere, it's not really a hole, an empty space, the atmosphere rushes to fill it. But too much gets there too quickly, and it ends up smacking back off of itself. It's a bit like a wave that hits the shore, and another one comes, and once this wave's hit, this one smacks back into the other wave. Yes? Because the water's rushed out and then it has to come back again and it smacks back into the wave. That is the best form of wave breaking that there is. So you get one strong wave followed by 3 medium waves. One strong wave is not perfect like that, but usually if you watch the ocean long enough, you'll see this, that those waves that come back, yes, they get there, but then when they push back, they push into the waves, which then break it down. It's good sea defense. It's a weird thing, but still, it's those every ones that do it. Those ones cause the most impact in erosion, and they also feed. Some go in the right way to feed the next wave. It's not a perfect science, but still, it's. But yeah, once you maneuver society in these ways, which would be like hunter-gatherers again. Why? Because if we go to one particular planet, We're going to be pulling certain resources from there. We're going to be hunting out those. And why hunting? Well, because the new predator is a planet that we've never been on before, that wants to kill us at every opportunity it's got. It wants to make it as hard as possible, barren, desert, dry. Every single opportunity it gets, it wants to devour you. So it's a bit like hunter-gatherers, right? But every movement they made through the woods, things were trying to eat them. Aurochs, shit, if they were around when the dinosaurs were around, I mean, that was a hell of a time to be in existence, right? You can see why the numbers were quite small. Everything, every move they made, every single thing they did do, any failure meant certain disaster, death. Didn't hunt right, death. Didn't migrate at the right time, death. Get too cold, death. Couldn't make fire, death, right? You see, there's a lot. It's reversed now, because if you're going into that with planets, the planets are going to want to do this to you in one way or another.
But why?
Well, it proves intelligence, doesn't it? One, it's proving its intelligence against you, and you are proving your intelligence against it. When you factor in your learning knowledge from the planet that you've lived on, and the intel, and you also know that things are hidden, and therefore you need the extra vision. The ears to hear, the eyes to see. You should have this level of intelligence built into you, and my money, if I had money, my universal understanding would be betting on humans to win against the planets and space, because you did on your own planet, and you've been unlocked to know, to see certain things. Not all of it, but enough to know. Now it becomes testing. Can you do it? And then these planets become the enemy, but not really. They're just boistering you, testing you. Because once you've done that and you've moved on to the planets in your solar system, all the ones that are local, what happens when you go to a different star system and it's completely different? Oh, the hunter-gathering begins again. And again.
Cycle.
And then, yes, it is a cycle. And once you've learned your own planet and thought that that was everything there is to know, you then start looking at other planets and thinking, oh shit, we don't even know half the shit that we've got here. Yeah? Then you start to learn that. And you think, oh, we know it all. And then we look at other solar systems and think they're the same. And then when we go there, we're like, I don't know. And I don't think we actually got that right.
Let's go back to Earth. Come on.
No, it wouldn't go back to Earth, but you would be too far away to go back to Earth. Cruel, but also very much puts it pressure on you to start once again hunting and gathering.
So it's like
gathering resources. It gets easier, by the way, and the rewards get more plentiful. Why? The Earth, if you go and deplete all of your resources here, it becomes a prison. You can't leave it. That's why it's very best never to do that. That's a silly thing to do. But again, you have that knowledge was hidden. It's visible. You see it. You know it. But yeah, if you go over to another planet, what are you really harming? There was no, you see on some movies, no harm to any animals came when making this movie. Those sort of things that happen. Was not tested on animals, yeah? Well, the ones that start mining from other planets can say that there was no harm to the biome of Earth in the gathering of these resources, right? Do you understand that, yeah? That's a sort of, it's a very strange thing, isn't it? So what are you really harming? Nothing. But what have you got to gain? And then, how much of the resource can you get? You haven't got to worry about anything. Why? Because, well, the jewel is safe, being Earth. Yeah. Not sure about you, though, Mars. All of that metal that's on there is very valuable. Even the sand itself is very valuable stuff.
Do you think that we will ever go to Venus?
To Venus?
Yeah.
It is incredibly hot. Yeah. You would have to strip off the atmosphere.
But how would you do that?
And then you would rely on the nighttime, by using reflective panels to reflect just enough light in certain locations on Venus from the dark side. So geosynchronized satellite, but holds up light. Not really light, it catches it from the sun and bounces the light onto the planet. Once the atmosphere is extracted down a certain notches, it won't get as hot. Therefore, it means that you can then walk on the surface. The only thing that is allowing that to get so hot is the atmosphere is collecting a lot of that. If it had no atmosphere, and we look at Mercury, it's closest to the star, yes?
Yeah.
One side is scorching hot, and the other side is freezing cold.
Well, what's in the middle?
The middle zone is the happy medium. That's where it's, well, go too close and it's too hot, go too far and it's too cold. So if you work in the happy medium zone, that's a good zone to be in. But Venus is the same thing, but that's because Mercury doesn't have much of an atmosphere, so it can't hold the heat. So as soon as it's heated up, it's cooled down by the time it rotates anyway, or orbits. Same thing as with Venus. It's too hot. Some of it is sulfuric, but if you can leach off the atmosphere, well, it's not going to be able to store that much heat, and light would be a problem. Perhaps if it was in the sun side, it would be too dangerous, but you can maneuver around radiation just by satellites. That's why we've got satellites. Some orbit and spin with the planet, yes?
Yeah.
But others can stay in one place, and the planet will spin around it. Now, those are very nice, but you can cause this to always reflect light, which then, if the crew that were down on the ground were always walking in this light, and they stayed in the light from the reflecting, they will be safe. And they mine accordingly. Mine as you go. You can operate a vehicle this way. If it got really good, you could also operate solar panels on the module that also power it, which always keep it in the light. And there you are. That's, again, you then start to map it. If you move up, it moves up. It's got to be synchronized with the buggy to always give you the light. Then you don't have to sink so many resources into creating light. You can focus on life support systems or growing food, and you can grow food in this way as well. So very fascinating. Even the dark side of the moon can be done this way. After all, sand is abundance, and polish it enough, it creates good glass if we melt it, but we can also make a good mirror from it. And maybe not a mirror, but maybe some magnified mirror, which can reflect this light and amplify it, concentrate it, by hitting a magnifying glass towards it to give more concentrated spotlight. That's why you've played around with light for very long. This whole thing is leading you, and to say that it's leading you for no reason and that there is nothing there and it's all a fluke, it would mean I'd have to ignore all of this. And there's more. This is just scratching the surface. We're not really diving deep in this. It's just a surface dive, this video. So do with that what you will, but to me, this all points to yes. And these are its favorite things. And it pits you against things. Intelligence is always pitted. You know, if you've truly learned it from hunter-gatherers, that's why losing knowledge is never good. And having accurate keepings of accounts works. But essence and residual energy is behind. So, interestingly, you know, and time in as well with nature. It's no good rising up humans without nature, and nature on its own needs a few things. So timing and calculating at those moments. So there you are. If I think there's life after death, not life, no, that's wrong. Existence, some form. Is it for everything? I don't know. I would say more so it's got favorites, but it is anything but stupid. You can't bullshit your way through this, and it is super intelligence. It's on steroids intelligence, like learning, and it is massive. What it is a mixture of things. Overall, bounces back to intelligence. So it doesn't matter what format it takes. What matters is in that format, in multiple different formats, is it intelligent? Yes. Does it still follow the script? Yes, it does. So there you are. Just a little one. Just a smidge.